Everybody grew up, first and foremost, writing and experiencing and sharing music in an intimate setting. And in Vienna, you had a lot of that, but you also had those cells, and then you had the larger stages, from theater to opera, and you were, of course, equidistant to, you had the Italians, in the south, you had the French, you had the Germans north. There's so much from Bohemia, and of course the Hungarian style, and fiddle styles here and there, and the vocal styles. And you had to kind of pass through Vienna to get to other places. So in many ways, it was a hub of art and of higher learning and of people exploring things and hearing what is happening in the rest of the world.
All of these pieces presented huge challenges for their premier orchestras. Beethoven's Ninth was a real challenge for those performers. Schoenberg, obviously, we have documented that it took 3 years to put together. And then it's the same case with this new Führer piece. But pieces like the Beethoven and the Schoenberg are maybe less challenging for our modern performers than the Führer is for them, because these are languages that we've been grown up to understand. We have access to so many different musical styles now because of recordings and because of new interests in music history. Any of us can go onto a computer and listen to music from the past 1,000 years. I think even up to Schoenberg's time, that was not the case. People were less interested in older music. And for Beethoven especially, people weren't interested in Bach during Beethoven's time. So you have performers in those eras dealing with pretty unified styles. And then when something like Schoenberg comes along or Rite of Spring comes along, it's a huge ordeal to put together. Our musicians that we're training in places like BU in the 21st century are being exposed to all of this all the time in their lessons and in their classes. So when something like the Führer comes along, which is completely new for them, that's a challenge that may reflect upon what performers had to deal with back in 1908 or in 1824 when they were trying to put together these new pieces, which are pieces now for us that don't take as long to prepare.
This is what concerts are supposed to be. Concerts are about composers stretching themselves, audiences stretching themselves, finding new ways to activate these sort of core human experiences that don't really change, but that we get to in different ways in different times. And for me, like a perfect kind of program does this. It deals with super adventurous music. And now some of that may be super adventurous music that is now familiar enough that we don't necessarily recognize the adventurousness of it, but putting it together allows you to hear how radical, every one of these pieces is a radical piece. We can forget that with the Beethoven, but it's a super radical piece. And, and the same is true with the Schoenberg, and the same is true with the Führer. And it's exciting.
I'm looking very much forward to it. I never was in the Symphony Hall in Boston. I know a few fantastic halls, and I mean, it's a pleasure to hear your own music in a good acoustic. So I'm very curious.
People say Symphony Hall and Musikvereinssaal in Vienna are the top two halls in the world. So there are many connections here that are going to be very exciting for the students and everybody involved, aside from the mere fact that the music itself speaks for itself. And it is so moving and will be great for both performers and audience, I'm sure.